Sometimes, my friends, when you find yourself stuck in the mud, you must first go backwards before you can go forwards. Now, after we made the league phase of the Champions League in Season 4, we thought we might do that in Season 5. We failed. We did make the Champions League phase again. We did better that time, but still not quite enough. And meanwhile, Albania was just kind of okay. If we were going to succeed in Season 6, perhaps this was the year we took that step backwards in order to take a giant leap forwards. And welcome back, one and all, to season number 6 of Red Rain, as we are looking to build the nation of Albania. How are you doing? 6 years in charge of KF Volotsnia. If you've been enjoying the series so far, please make sure you drop a big fat like down below this video. Also, let me know what you think of the series. If there's anything you'd like to see that I haven't been showing you, or areas of these videos that maybe I dwell a little too long on that you really don't care about, I'd like to hear from you in the comments as well. So thank you very much for all of your continued support. Before we get to our European journey, first, we must deal with our summer transfer window. And the first player out the door was Ardit Krimi, our former captain. At 32 years old, he was just losing his place on the side, and we were having trouble justifying keeping him in there. So we let him go on a free transfer at the end of his contract. He did get picked up by Kukesi, so all's well that ends well. Now, most of the transfer business we ended up doing in this window was of the loan variety, and we'll talk a little bit about our loan situation later on in this video, but we did make the decision that it was time to say goodbye to Vanja Pelshko. We are kind of stacked up front. We were stacking ourselves even more up front, more on that when we get to the ins, but it was just time that Pelshko was on his way. The team was starting to just move away from him. He was very, very good for us. He was a very solid player and an addition when we made it, but now he's playing at Olympia. We also had trouble justifying keeping around 27-year-old Italian midfielder Marco Friggero. Now, we did take a bit of a loss on him. We originally bought him just last season for 375,000 euros. Only got 125 back, but he is back in his native Italy, playing in Serie A for Monza. And as always, we wished him the best. While I loved some of the mental capabilities of 20-year-old Feitan Haidari, I just did not see him making his way onto the team now or in the future. So we allowed him to go off to Elbasani. We kept him in the country, and hopefully he has a great season in the league against us. And with the emergence of Nemanja Perisic and the need to keep Mikhail Brajlika on the side because of his homegrown status, we just really didn't have a place anymore for Luka Nenedovic. We had sent him out on loan last year. We made a permanent move this year, 56,000 for the 24-year-old Serbian. As for the players making permanent moves in, we've already talked about last season about Jurashuk. We brought him in on loan last year, and in the winter transfer window made the deal permanent. He did not join us, though, until the summer officially. He is here to be our backup right back behind Roberto. One of the reasons I was okay saying goodbye to Vanja Pelshko is because we were going to say hello to 22-year-old Serbian Milan Aleksic. We got him for free, and just look at those attributes. He's fantastic. Great anticipation, finishing, dribbling, very good, decent off the ball. His heading is great, even though he's not that good in the air, and we're paying him quite a bit, 9,250 euros per week, but he is a U21 international, and if we could get him for free and sell Pelshko for money, good business all around. This year we were split kind of 50-50 in the business we did coming in between players we intended to keep at Volotsnia and those we intended to farm out to other Albanian clubs. One of the latter is 19-year-old Italian center back Pietro Giannone. Great in the air, 6'3", very strong. Tackling ability is fantastic. Love the bravery as well. He may have a home here later on, but for right now we have sent him out on loan to Skinderbell. I don't know what it is about Eklu Shaka Mawuli that attracted me to him in the first place. Probably the fact he wasn't going to cost us a lot of money, although $5,500 a week is a decent amount of wages. But if you remember from last season, we had a lot of money left over to spend that we didn't. And we still weren't spending all of that money. But he is very good defensively. His tackling ability is pretty good. Fit in very well in that Carolero role. Good teamwork, vision, work rate, off the ball, concentration, decisions. Lots of 12s and above in those attributes. So I felt pretty confident in bringing this 30-year-old Ghanaian into the squad. One for the latter group is 19-year-old Bosnian center back Matija Bulat, 6'2". Jumping reach is just okay. In fact, he's fairly average all around, but he came for cheap, and Dinamo City wanted him out on loan, so that worked out for both clubs. Good aggression, anticipation, bravery, concentration, also very good. Positioning and tackling, though, were what we really liked about him. Is he ever going to play for us? I don't know. 25 U21 caps, though, at the age of 19, told me that maybe this kid was a little bit special. We're still looking for a loan move for 20-year-old Serbian Jegos Stefanovic. Another defensive player. He is more of a fullback, though, than a center back, naturally on the right-hand side. Only stands at 5'8", and needs to work on his pace just a little bit. Can't really cross the ball either, but we got him super cheap, and he was highly recommended. Needs to work on that consistency as well. And the unambitious personality, don't love it, so he's probably not going to stick around here, but hopefully we'll find a new home for him shortly. We finally are starting to bring in players from outside of our little neck of Europe. And look at the bravery number on this 19-year-old center back from Brazil. Dodo, only 5'11", so not really our stereotypical center back, but I'm sure he's going to work out at Skinderbelt while he is out there on loan. High level of determination as well. He is good in the air. He is good with his heading. He can tackle. His positioning is pretty good, and he's got a ton of upside. Hopefully he realizes that. $1,500 a week, not going to cost us a lot at all. Another one of those players originally intended to be loaned out that we haven't yet found a suitor for is 19-year-old Czech international. Has a cap for the senior team already. Goalkeeper Peter O'Biden. He is just very good all around, and I think he may very quickly end up surpassing Filip Samurovic. Now, Samurovic is still going to be our starting goalkeeper. We did have to, in order to sign Peter, promise him first team minutes, which is one of the reasons why we are trying to move him out. Obviously, he's an upgrade as a backup over Mario Daisanani, to be sure. Right now, we have not found another place for him, so he is going to start the year with us. And finally, a player that we really had to fight to get. He was in the third tier of France, but he's an Albanian international, homegrown in the nation, and we needed more of this kind of guy, so we kind of took a punt on 30-year-old striker Juliano Shkuka. The reason why I say we take a punt is because Concerno did not want to let him go, so the only way that we could get him in on loan was to promise an optional future fee of 4 million euros, which you see is well above his value. Now, it's optional. We don't necessarily have to spend it. Hopefully, he's going to be worth it, but having another guy that we could definitely register for Europe without worrying about anything, especially because he had some injuries early on to the striker position. Rotating through was a bit of a challenge. So to have a guy that we could register without having to unregister somebody else because of his homegrown status, well, that, my friends, that was huge. Now, usually at this point in the video, we start talking about our fantastic year in Albania. We are not going to do that. We are starting, my friends, in Europe with the Champions League, of course. And for the second consecutive year in our first qualifying round, we were matched up against the team that, frankly, is only here because they won their respective league. We destroyed Balzan from Malta. 10-0 in the second leg, 15-0 on aggregate. Although this year our second qualifying round proved to be a little bit different than last. We matched up against Sheriff Tiraspol. Our first leg was on the road. And even though we rode an Enes Tojai 60th minute goal to a 1-0 lead, they quickly came back and made it 2-1 to take the win at home. Where we returned home, things got a little easier for us. Tojai scored his second goal of the tie. We also got tallies from Georgi Petrovic and Lamine Fofana. 3-0 to win the match. 4-2 on aggregate, on to the third qualifying round. where we would face our toughest test of the early rounds of the Champions League so far. Terrible job by Ishmael trying to head that ball away. Took on FC Copenhagen on the road, and they beat us 2-0 at their place, which put us up against the ropes at home in the second leg. But we would get one back to make it 2-1 on aggregate. Tomic feeding Mosconi, who put his left foot shot past Grabara to make it 1-0 on the night. We would get a second off of the corner, Perisic heading it home, all even, and then Copenhagen would get their lone goal of the match into the middle. Johannesson scored it, and they beat us 3-2 on aggregate. We were out of the Champions League, but this, my friends, this was our step backwards, which is to mean that I wasn't really upset that we dropped down into the Europa League until we found ourselves matched up against Crvena Zvezda again. But I needn't have worried, because a Marko Šurić goal from the penalty spot got things started. We ended up putting a 4 spot on Red Star Belgrade as Mosconi made it 2-0. Great feed from Anis Tojai, who really, for a guy who on paper probably shouldn't have been on this team even last year, all he does is score goals. In fact, he added another goal contribution there, knocking it home for the third of the match before Tomic looked to send across into the middle. Mosconi once again with that mighty left foot. The hilarious thing is, just like last year, we seem to be doing our level best to giving things back to Crvena Zvezda. After the penalty, it was 4-1 on aggregate. Kabic getting in behind the defense made it 4-2. Then Nežević to Lecic over for Radojevic. His shot deflecting off of the defender. Abaydin couldn't handle it, and Kabic puts it home. 3-0 on the night, 4-3 on aggregate, and here's where I started to sweat. Now, we did, much like last year, get one back. Shaka Mawuli with a goal from range, and that would be the end of the scoring, my friends. 3-1 to Crvena Zvezda on the night, 5-3 to us on the tie, and we are in the Europa League phase, which was all well and good until we found out we were starting the campaign off at home to Arsenal. Yes, we were at home, but flipping Arsenal. And if you thought I was getting worked up in anticipation of the match, well, during the match, it was even worse. We really didn't get a lot going, even though we rattled off 14 shots, 7 of them on target. Martin Odegaard and crowd were just too much for us, and we dropped our first match of the Europa League 4-0. The next match wasn't much easier on my stomach. We took a 2-0 lead into the 65th minute against Levski Sofia, and we effectively pissed it away, leaving Bulgaria with just a single point. Sometimes all you need is a little miracle, and in a match where we seemed to dominate, it took a Marko Šurić penalty to put us up 1-0, and eventually the taker of all 3 points at home against St. Gallen. In fact, Šurić had double-digit goals from the penalty spot this year. We'll talk about that a little later on. This time he was provider against AZ, feeding Mosconi into the middle to give us a 1-0 lead on the road off of a corner. I don't know how to defend those. AZ was able to tie things up, but in the second half, we were able to explode. Now, they were down to 10 men, to be fair, but back post, Škuka putting it past Ryan to make it 2-1 Volocnia, and we would add a third in stoppage time. Tomic along the grass. Ryan never saw it through the sea of bodies. 3-1, and our second consecutive victory in Europe, which we would make 3 in a row as we traveled to take on CFR Cluj. Mihajlo Spazojevic, Mattia Mosconi, Federico Romeo, and Giuliano Škuka, all scoring goals for the second consecutive European match as well. We denied them a penalty opportunity. 4-2, your final 3 victories in the Europa League. So I was hoping but not really expecting to make it 4 wins on the bounce when we hosted Fiorentina just before the winter break. Škuka did, though, put us ahead less than 4 minutes into this match, and we would not look back. Nemanja Jekovic off of a corner. Šurić once again from the penalty spot, even though Martinelli did guess correctly, gave us a 3-0 lead. It would take until the 92nd minute of play before Fiorentina would get back a consolation goal. But a massive 3-1 victory with 2 matches left in the league phase already guaranteed us a spot in the knockout rounds for the very first time. Sadly, though, we couldn't make it 5. Traveling on the road to Sporting in Portugal, a Ricardo Ezial goal was the only difference, even though they led us in basically every statistical category. This match was a lot closer than it looked like on paper. We were very unlucky not to break through and walk away with at least a point. Seeding all 3, though, that kind of hurt. Even though we were already qualified for the knockouts, a victory against Stuttgart in front of a capacity crowd at home would get us straight into the round of 16, and Škuka did his best to get us there, putting us up 1-0. Then Aleksić had the ball knocked away. It came right to Škuka's feet. He put it past the goalkeeper to complete a brace and put us up 2-0 at the break. Now, Stuttgart would get one back, a back post header by Babila over Škuka, of course, made it 2-1, but then Šurić from the spot gave us the 2-goal advantage once again. We would make it 3 in the 87th minute. Šuk winning it back into the middle. Mosconi, so good inside that penalty box, gave us a 4-1 lead. Now, Stuttgart would get one more, but it would not be enough for them. 4-2, your ultimate final score in this one. And even though we did need a little bit of assistance from Sparta Prague, or at least from their opponents, we did what we set out to do on the afternoon, qualified in 8th place, and went straight to the round of 16. Meanwhile, we did have some business to take care of. Brought in a lot of young players that we were intending to loan out to other sides, and we were very successful on that. 20-year-old Colombian central defender Jose Luis Barbosa spent less than 24 hours with Volotsnia. He is off on loan to Ceuta. He cost us 325,000 euros, by the way. We paid 475 for a U19 Serbian international, 20-year-old striker Sreten Krstic. Not the greatest personality in the world, but man, can he finish, and he's got all the mentals that really count. Some speed and acceleration as well, which ain't too shabby. He's currently hanging out in our youth teams till we figure out what we're going to do with him next. Joining him there for now is 19-year-old Italian goalkeeper Massimo Tadaro. Decent with the one-on-ones, great handling ability, a little bit eccentric for my personal tastes, but his aerial reach, jumping reach are both fantastic. Decent amount of agility, great reflexes as well, and we're only paying him $1,100 a week. Could potentially be our goalkeeper of the future behind O'Biden at the very least. Still not 100% sure if Samirovic is going to be sticking around long term. You know, he's like 24 now. He's getting a little long in the tooth. For the second time this year, we plopped 650,000 euros on the table. This time on a 20-year-old Argentinian central defenseman slash defensive midfielder in the form of Daniel Navarro. We quickly loaned him out to Schenderbau. We're taking all of these guys. Essentially, we are scouting a lot of South America and a lot of other parts of Europe. Most of those players, because of our reputation, don't want to join us. Anyone who would agree to join us, we basically sign them, even though they're probably most likely not going to be playing for us. At least they have shown a willingness to come to Albania. And I can never resist taking a player away from Crvena Zvezda if I have the opportunity. 19-year-old Serbian Vlado Ilic, another natural striker. God, look at that first touch. Tons and tons of green in those attributes. Looking very forward to seeing how this kid develops. Currently with our U19s, we're going to see if we loan him out because there's one day left in the transfer window. But this winter window did mean that we had to make some tough decisions. One of them was to say goodbye to Georgi Petrovic. Had the same situation this year that we did last, where he started to come to us and say, look, I want more playing time, even though he was, I believe at the time, an emergency backup. We loved him. The fans loved him. I didn't want to let him go, but, one time too many, he came to us saying, Can I play more? Can I play more? Can I play more? And I just couldn't give him a good answer. And we also parted ways with 30-year-old Ivorian central midfielder Lamine Fofana. Got some playing time early on in the year, but just found himself down on the pecking order. His contract was up at the end of the year. Mimosas came in, offered him a deal starting in the summer, and we were like, why don't you just take him now? We only got $8,000 for him, which kind of pissed off the board and the fans because they thought that he should have gotten more, but in reality, that's $8,000 more than we would have had if he left at the end of the year. Back to action in the Europa League. We were matched up in the round of 16 against Sturm Graz. We played the first match on the road in the snow, but we still managed to get the scoring off pretty early. Matteo Mosconi once again putting one home. We got a ton of production out of our entire striking core. Seeing eyeball came to Vlahovic just a couple of minutes later to tie things up at 1. Sturm Graz would then take the lead before halftime. Pretty decent shot that I think Semirovic should have been able to handle, but then Šurić from the penalty spot got us back even. Just a minute and a half into the second half of this match. We would then go up by a score of 3-2 as Tomic, cutting to his right just inside the box, put it past the goalkeeper, and we took the win on the road, bringing the advantage back to Włocławek, which would start off very similarly just a little bit later in the match. This time Mosconi feeding Luca Tosi. Didn't see a ton of action this year. I'll tell you why after we finish this highlight. But we were able to take a 2-0 lead into the locker room, and it seemed like we had a chokehold on the tie, but you cannot count out Sturm Graz. Good defensive play, but the ball came right to Jota, past Semirovic to make it 2-1 on the afternoon, and we would hold on to win the tie by a 5-3 aggregate score. So Luca Tosi is a fan favorite of mine, and I know he's a fan favorite of yours. I've heard from a few of you in the comments and on Discord that you really like this kid. However, he just could not seem to find his way onto the pitch much this year. Just looking from the beginning of the summer, a pulled groin, a damaged kneecap, a bruised ankle, a twisted knee, a pulled hamstring, a bruised shin, and a groin strain. The groin strain was suffered on the pitch. Get your mind out of the gutter. So the great news about that victory against Sturm Graz meant that we had a date with the round of 8. That's the quarterfinals, to you and me, of the UEFA Europa League. The bad news is we matched up against Arsenal. And even though we tried our best, we just were not good enough, even at home, losing 1-0. Yes, we only gave up the one goal to one of the best teams in all of Europe, and certainly the best team in this particular competition. But at the end of the day, a football team is just not going to be able to stand up against the steamroller. Gabriel Jesus, Luciano Valdes, and Gabriel Martinelli with first half goals, and that would be all Arsenal would need to beat us 3-0 at the Emirates, 4-0 on aggregate, and boot us from Europe. We'll take a look at how the other Albanian teams did in Europe in just a little bit. Plus, of course, we'll have the final coefficient charts of the year. But first, we need to talk regular season, which I'm not going to lie, didn't get off to a dream start in Dinamo City as Zojai's goal goes through a sea of bodies and past Samirovic to give the home team a 1-0 lead. Now, early on in the second half, Yuriim Hassani, all he seems to do is score goals from outside the D. He did tie it up at 1, but another one of those cheeky corners led to our downfall. Zojai ending up with it again, knocking it in off of the post, and we dropped our first 3 points of the season. And even though last year we didn't drop our first match in the league until after the new year, we didn't even make it past opening day this year. But I really needn't have worried, because by the time the year was up, that was the only loss we suffered all season, running away with the league by a full 18 points over Bilis. Going to be joined in the playoffs by them, Ertseni and Tirana. 30 wins out of 36, and we eclipsed last year's record-taking points haul of 90 by 5. Remember last year how club legend Bakim Balai took his first head coaching job and flew the nest? Yeah, well, he also crapped the bed, got fired with just 2 points under his belt through half a season, so we just welcomed him back into the fold as one of our newest coaches. And on another feel-good note, Luka Broderic is now officially an Albanian citizen. He took up the nationality because he thought he was good enough to play for Albania. Time will tell there, but it's always good to see that we brought in a player to the country and he decided to make it his forever home. As far as the playoffs are concerned, it should not be a surprise that we absolutely rolled Tirana in the semifinal, 6-2, 5 different goal scorers, including Juliano Škuka, Nemanja Perisic, Federico Romeo, Marko Šurić, not from the penalty spot for either of them, and Nemanja Djekovic. And I will spare you yet another B-roll of us lifting the trophy. Not because we didn't win it. Oh, we did. They managed a pair of goals in the final 15 minutes, but we took KF Bilis out in the final pretty darn easily at Air Albania Stadium to lift our 6th consecutive Albanian title. And if you're wondering about the cup, yeah, we won that again too. For the 4th consecutive year this time, a 5-0 drubbing of Terbuni. Now, because we were constantly setting attendance records, but we didn't know in our stadium, we asked the club mid-season or so if we could build a new one. They didn't think that was the greatest idea, so instead we asked, can we just buy Stadiami Lochobarici? And they said, sure. So now the 16,000 all-seater stadium is owned by KF Vlacnia, and plans are already underway to expand to over 17,000. So while we definitely took that one step backwards to take a massive step forward in Europe, can't say the same thing about the other teams in Albania. In the first qualifying round of the Europa Conference League, Elbasani was matched up against Sabertarlo, took care of business at home by a 2-1 score. Loni Paolo Minella factoring in on that one. But once the tie went back to Tbilisi, it was all Sabertarlo. 3-0, a hat-trick from Georgi Kokreidze, and Elbasani was out of Europe in the first round. Meanwhile, Bilis, starting in the second qualifying round, had a very tough draw against TSV Hartberg from Austria, did not manage a single goal in the tie, and fell 3-0 on aggregate, 1 and done. And it was no different for Terbuni. They managed a 1-1 draw on the road in Iceland, but then Vikingur ran them all over the pitch, and a brace by Albion Avdijai just wasn't enough to save the Albanian side. So all 3 of the other Albanian teams did not make it past their first round of competition. But that, my friends, is why we are here, because we managed our best year in Europe from a coefficient standpoint, picking up 6.625 points. No thanks to anybody else. They're really going to need to start pulling their weight in the coming years, because we can't do it all. It will keep us ahead of the Republic of North Macedonia by quite a bit, over 6 points in fact. We're going to actually move up 2 spots. Hungary and Poland are going to fall behind us. Hungary toppling all the way down from 24th. They will be the new 29th place team. So moving up 2 spots to 27th, not too bad. Hopefully I haven't prattled on too long, and I intended to do this at the end of Season 5, but I did want to highlight some of the performances, statistically speaking, of members of our team this year. We've gotten to know them over the last couple of years. Now let's see how they've really done. I especially wanted to do this because, frankly, I glossed over the entire regular season. Filip Semirovic had an excellent year for us, even though he did split quite a bit of time with Peter Abidin. He ended up staying with us for the full year. We could not send him out on loan, and he'd gotten enough playing time to really prove that he was pretty good. We'll talk about him in just a second. 36 starts overall for Semirovic. He did concede 41 goals over the year, kept 12 clean sheets in all competitions with a 7.09 average rating. So not too bad from the old man, now 26. So while O'Biden did play second fiddle, he did manage 28 starts in all competitions, 23 of them in the league. So he was basically our league goalkeeper for most of the year, and played a bunch in the Cup as well, just the one appearance in the Europa League. But 28 starts, 26 goals conceded, 13 clean sheets. The now 20-year-old, pretty darn good, and might be making a case for being our starting goalkeeper next year, especially since Jurovic, we haven't signed him to a new contract just yet. Well, he did spend the first half of the year at Skenderbau. They weren't playing him as a central defenseman, so we recalled him at the midway point and actually gave some playing time to now 20-year-old Pietro Giannoni. Made 18 starts in all competitions, 5 sub-appearances, didn't make any offensive contributions. That's really not his game, and he ended up with a 7.04 overall rating, so not so bad as a essentially third, sometimes fourth choice center back. We did have one transfer I didn't talk about because it happened well after the transfer window was closed, but we did say goodbye to Salim Ismail. We got an offer of $300,000. Now you see he's worth a whole ton more from the San Jose Quakes in MLS. It was basically more than his value at the time, and he was kind of grumbling a little bit about wanting to go. Made 9 league appearances for them. He was okay. He was pretty good for us. A pair of goals in 22 starts before the transfer happened. I'm sorry, I was wrong. It was $250,000. But the fact that we got him on a free the year before, not too bad. Hey, as long as we're making money on the players we send out and replacing them with guys that we know that can play, like Giannoni, who was kind of pushing Ismail for playing time, and honestly that mistake he made in the Champions League still kind of stuck in my craw. But I digress. Newly minted Albanian Luka Broderic, 38 starts, 3 appearances off of the bench, 6 goals, 5 assists, still masterful in the air, still very good defensively as well, although his tackle rate of 63% in the league wasn't so hot. He did have a 100% tackle rating in the Champions League, so maybe he just needs a little bit stiffer competition to really step up his game. Anyway, a 7.14 rating, not bad. But absolutely amazing was his defense partner, Nemanja Djakovic, wearing the captain's armband this year, I believe for the second consecutive season, if I am not mistaken. Made 41 starts for us, scored 11 goals, added 5 assists with a 7.36 overall rating in all competitions. That was actually just dragged down by a lowly 6.96 in the Europa League. Had some issues through the season with Nemanja Perisic as far as his playing time. Now, we did a lot of rotation because we were playing a lot of football, and frankly, it didn't really matter in a lot of the league games who we put on the pitch as long as they could breathe and kick a football. So Perisic kicked up a fuss a couple of times, but he was still our primary defensive midfielder. That is his natural position, and we were playing him in that anchor role. He did make 42 starts in all competitions, although only 18 in the league. That's kind of what was getting him a little ticked off. 3 goals, 6 assists from a primarily defensive-minded player, and a rating over 7 across all competitions. That's pretty good, man. Branimir Shavar still kicking. Could not find a buyer for him over the winter, so we kept him around. He only made 8 appearances, most of them coming in off of the bench, but he still added a pair of goals and 4 assists. So, like I said, no matter who he put out there, we win. Fans still love him too, which doesn't hurt. Marko Šurić, 20 goals in all competitions in 44 total appearances, 37 of them starts. Here's the caveat, though. 15 of those 20 goals came from the penalty spot, so not really doing a whole ton from open play, but he had the skill level to guarantee himself the playing time, and man, is he consistent. He's 25. I don't know if he's going to be around next year, to be perfectly honest with you, just simply because I think we can get the same level of production from elsewhere and have what, in my opinion, is a slightly better option in the midfield, but time will tell. Eklushaka Mawuli kind of really grew on me. Now, there's some down arrows toward the end of the season here. I see he's getting a little older. He's now 31 years old. But he made 34 starts for us, 6 sub appearances, 12 goals, 10 assists. Most of them kind of coming on the back end. I had trouble figuring out where and when and how I wanted to play him in the first half of the year. Second half, it became a much easier decision, even though he obviously wasn't playing all of the time. He did make the bulk of his starts in the league and started about 2/3 of the matches for us. And, well, 12 goals, not going to turn that down. Mikhail Brajlika, I think his time here is done after the season. He's now 29 years old. We kept him around all of these years because of his homegrown status, but we now have players that we have gotten in through our youth intakes over the last couple of years that are developing enough that they can sit on the bench for us. Still managed 13 starts in the league, 15 sub appearances throughout all competitions, and a 6.83 rating. Not too bad, but just a pair of assists. Even as a defensive midfielder primarily, although he did sneak in a couple of appearances at center back as well. Yeah, we've got better options. Yuriem Hassani, I got to admit, he's a much more attack-minded player than the role we play him in. But at 19 years old, chipped in 5 goals in the league, 7 in all competitions, added 4 assists, with an overall 7.16 rating in relatively limited time. Oh, well, okay, he played in 44 matches, but only started 27 of them. Still pretty good, and he's got a ton of room to grow. He's been very consistent for us, and if you give him the ball just outside of the box and a lane to shoot, he'll shoot. Pretty sure he'll score. And then there's Federico Romeo, 27-year-old Italian, and all this guy seems to do is chuck in some goal contributions. 4 goals, though, on the season, 15 assists in all competitions, and a 7.15 overall rating. Yeah, our players may not necessarily look great on paper, but man, are they performing on the pitch. Now, we're spending a pretty penny on him, 9,250 euros a week, so maybe we need to trim that fat, although they just raised our wage budget for next year. Again, we'll get to that in a second. So I'm not really worried about the cash, but he is one of our highest earners by far. For the strikers, I'm going to start with Milan Aleksic. 14 goals, 6 assists, and 33 total appearances across all competitions. And I got to say, I don't know if I'm going to keep him around for next year. Just something about the 23-year-old Serbian. He just did not excite me. He did it on the pitch, a 7.27 overall rating across all competitions. Although, to be fair, just a single assist and no goals over 12 starts in both the Champions and Europa Leagues. You know what? That's going to do it. His failure to perform in Europe is going to lead him to the chopping block. And if you think it's crazy, I'm saying that about a 14-goal scorer, just wait. He had a down year on account of all the injuries, but we still got double-digit goals out of Luka Tosi. 26 starts, 11 sub-appearances, 10 goals, 7 assists. When he was on the pitch, he played well. He just kept getting carted off the pitch. It's okay, guys. Don't worry. The 21-year-old, he ain't going anywhere. Enis Tojai, up to 2.5 stars. He was a 2-star current and potential ability for a while there, but something said to me, hang on to this kid. 24 years old. On paper, he don't look like much. He scored 16 goals, added 7 assists in 25 starts and 17 sub-appearances against all competitions. 4 goals, 2 assists, and 6 appearances in the Champions League. To be fair, a lot of that was front-loaded against the side from Malta, but a goal and an assist in limited minutes in the Europa League. Not going to scoff at that as well. Was he down on the pecking order? Absolutely. But when he got onto the pitch, he just made magic. What can I say about Mattia Mosconi? I mean, the 22-year-old scored 26 goals overall competitions and only 38 appearances. So of all of the strikers we've gone over so far, besides Luka Tosi, he may have played the least number of minutes. 26 goals, 12 assists, a 7.59 rating. Just to give you an idea, that was his rating last year in the league alone. He's got 39 goals, 16 assists in 59 senior appearances in the league. Mihailo Spazojevic went a period of 11 hours this year without scoring a goal, yet somehow managed to tally 20 and add 14 helpers in 44 total appearances across all competitions. Now, I don't normally pay much attention to the season in review, but I'm going to use a screenshot from that to talk about our final player in Giuliano Scuca. Remember, we got him in on loan from Concarneau in the third tier of France. Yeah, in 34 starts, 42 total appearances, he potted 28 goals and added 10 assists, and somehow the board gave us an F for the signing. I'm sorry, what? What are they smoking? Whatever it is, give me some. Season 6 has been a rip-roaring success. Yes, we got bounced out of the Champions League before we got into the league phase, but you know what? That was okay because we ate really good in the Europa League. Hopefully we can do it again next season. We're, of course, going to start our European campaign in the Champions League qualifying rounds. We'll see how far we go. Can we build on this success? We've taken Albania up to 27th on the UEFA coefficient charts. Things are pretty tight with the teams right above us. We're going to need to work really hard to get up there. So we need our other Albanian sides, please, 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 to do well in Europe next year. They may need help from us in the transfer window to do it. All the players we loaned out, we had 30 players out on loan, by the way, the majority of which are going to be out on loan at those very same clubs next year. And as we saw as we were going through a few things, they are contributing to success in Europe for those other clubs. We just need more guys to step up. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit a like down below. Leave me a comment. Did you like the way I flip things around? I didn't want to keep it too formulaic, and I wanted to put some of the more interesting stuff up front because the league was kind of, you know what I mean. We also have a Patreon. It's in the description. Please go support us over there. Become a member. Even if you're a free member, you get early access to these videos. You get to see them when they are ready rather than when they come out every Monday and Friday at 10. You can also enjoy our Russell Olympic Director of Football series that we have coming out each and every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday at the same time. Thanks so much for joining me. I appreciate all of your support. We are almost at 300 subscribers. I appreciate you for helping us get there. Put us over the top. You would really make an old man's day. Thanks so much for being here. I'll see you back for season number 7 on Monday. Until then, bye-bye.